am so excited. Hello. You are watching Delivering Joy MD, a brand new channel brought to you by me, Dr. Joy. I'm an OBGYN and I practice in a small town in Georgia, and I'm super excited to be bringing you some new content. So a couple of thousand people thought this might be a really good idea to have some girl talk and real conversations about women's health, relationships, makeup, clothing, hair, all kinds of stuff. All things woman is what this channel is about. So if you're watching, go ahead and click that subscribe button and make sure you hit the notification bell so that you can tune in to my videos. Join the girl gang, yes. So let's just take a few minutes and talk a little bit about what this channel is going to be about, and then I'm going to tell you about myself. This is an introductory video, right? So I want to introduce myself to you, but I really want to kind of get a chance to connect with women and to talk to a lot of women at one time about different health problems or conditions, about preventative health, and about all the things that are important to us as women. So I'm really looking forward to this opportunity to connect with you. I also want to kind of tear down some barriers, because I noticed that people have this really weird idea about what kind of people doctors are and how they live and what their interactions are like with people. And I really want to kind of start to change that narrative, because I do hear a lot of really negative feedback about doctors being greedy or uncaring or rude, or that they're practicing in ways that are harmful to patients on purpose. And while there are a few doctors that may be like this, the majority of us are just really cool people. So I want to get to know you, and I want you to get to know me, and I want to really just lift up womanhood and enjoy being a woman and help you enjoy it more too. So let's talk a little bit about my perspective and where I'm coming from. I think it's always good to get a little history so you know where someone is coming from and you can kind of understand their views. And just to be, totally direct, these will be my views, not the views of my employer or my husband or even my mama. I am going to be talking to you about how I feel about things. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to agree with me, but I think we can always respect each other's opinions. And maybe I might have something to say that might be helpful to you, or just downright entertaining. So I was born in Georgia and raised in Georgia, have always lived in Georgia. I'm a Georgia lifer, and I love my state. And recently I've been really engaged in a lot of work with regard to maternal mortality. And I'm sure if you're like breathing, you've heard about the problems that the United States has with women dying during pregnancy or around childbirth or even after they've given birth, and how the United States has really had a spike over the past, say 10 to 15 years, especially. So I really wanted a way to kind of talk about things that we need to know as women. Some things that I think that we really could benefit from knowing. And one great thing about women, and the reason why I love talking to women, is that if you teach one woman about how to, live a healthier lifestyle, she's going to tell everybody she knows, because that's just what we do, right? So I'm really excited to be bringing this content to you, and I really want it to be focused on your needs. And so I hope that you will take a minute of your precious time and just post in the comments some things that you're interested in discussing, and I will be happy to review those and make sure that I'm developing content based on what you guys want to talk about, because I love to talk, as you can see. So I can talk about a whole lot of subjects. We can talk about things from finances to relationships and thinking about motherhood and all sorts of things. And if I don't know, I'll tell you, and I'll find someone that does, and maybe we'll have a few guest appearances on this channel, right? Okay, so in thinking about my history and kind of where my perspective comes from, the lens that I'm viewing life out of, I wanted to just give you guys a little brief rundown about my life and just kind of introduce myself and be really transparent with you guys, right? So I was born in the greatest decade ever known to man. That's the 1980s, and I love all things 80s. So that's from makeup to hair to clothes, and definitely the music. Like, I think I'm Prince's biggest fan. I really like still get emotional when I think about Prince being gone. But anywho, I was born in LaGrange, which is where I now deliver babies at the very same hospital, which I think is just, love it. And I just recently moved back to LaGrange. And so I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my journey. And so my parents were married and they lived in LaGrange, and they subsequently divorced when I was 5. So I kind of took a pathway that led me out of LaGrange for a good long while with my parents. And so my mom is like this amazing woman who was a social worker by trade and training, and she has always been working with people, always doing things that are community minded, really trying to improve the lives of people, especially young people. She worked for the YMCA for many years and retired as a YMCA legend, so she's kind of a big deal. And then my dad is a dentist, and he has always done really well in practice and has helped so many people and just done a really great job, and has such a august body of service to the community. So I think that I get the hands and the heart thing honestly, and it's kind of a running joke, like you got your mama's heart and your daddy's brain in his hands. And so I really love approaching my patients from a whole woman standpoint. So it's not just about the condition. You're not a condition, you're a person. And so we have to deal with all the things surrounding your condition, like your relationships, your mental state, like where you are and how you're feeling, and also thinking about what resources you have. So I think that it's really important to approach people from a holistic standpoint. So that's a big goal of mine whenever I'm seeing a woman in my office. So anyway, you know, I can get down a rabbit hole. So let's get back to this. So my mom and I moved to Atlanta after my parents divorced, and I, of course, went to elementary school. And my mom, you know, grew up in a situation where they were very poor. And, you know, my grandmother was the primary head of household in her home, and she worked extremely hard to be able to have a better life than what she grew up having. So when we moved back to Atlanta, we kind of had to rough it for a bit, so to speak. It was definitely a time where we were kind of trying to, or my mom was trying to get back on her feet and kind of get this whole single motherhood thing down. So we actually moved back in with her mom and my aunt and my uncle and my cousins. And so we stayed there for a while, and then my mom was able to get her own place, and we moved, you know, outside of the actual city of Atlanta. But it was really a fun time, definitely a different time for me. So, you know, where things that were acceptable at my mom's house or when I'm with my mom's family were just not acceptable when I was at my dad's house and with my dad's family. So it forced me to really start to be able to navigate and relate to just about anybody, right? So, you know, I remember vividly one time I was like 7 or 8. So, you know, when you eat soul food, we like to get into it. So like I had collard greens and cornbread, and I would put it all together and mush it up, and I would eat it with my fingers. And that was totally okay at my mom's, but at my dad's, my grandmother like lost her grits talking about me putting my hands in my plate. She's like, oh no ma'am, you better get that fork. So, you know, there were all these different idiosyncrasies, things that I had to like really figure out quickly. And while it was kind of uncomfortable as a kid, it actually served me so well, you know, as an adult, because now I feel really comfortable in just about any atmosphere and can, you know, enjoy myself with just about anybody. So I think that that was something that I, you know, give credit to my mom for, is giving me opportunity to see different things. And my dad was always, you know, trying to expose me to new things as well. And so I think it was really a good, though my parents were divorced, they were both very serious about trying to give me the best head start in life as possible. So I went to private Christian schools, and I was, you know, one of these kids who does really well academically, but doesn't do so well when it comes to conduct and behavior. So I spent a little time in the principal's office, nearly like every other day. So my principal was just amazing, and she took so much time with me and really took on a mentorship role in my life. And she was actually at my medical school graduation, so that was wild to see her again and just remember all the great things that she taught me. But I went to such an awesome school. They were very nurturing, you know, and I felt like I got a great education there, but that I was loved there. And that's something that's so important for kids, especially when your mom is you know, a really busy working single mom. So I'm always so grateful to God for placing those teachers and that principal in my life at the time that he did. So after I left that school, I went to another Christian school, which was a little bit interesting. But basically, let's just make a long story short, I begged and begged and begged my parents to let me go to public school after that. So in 10th grade, I actually started going to Riverdale, which was so much fun. I love Riverdale Raiders, and I felt like that is the place where I really started to understand how to navigate social situations and to really develop that ability to get along and make friends and just kind of become a young adult. And so I can't say that I exactly learned a lot of new academic material, but socially it was gold. So when I was preparing to graduate from Riverdale High School, I had this awful car accident, and I ended up having a head-on collision and actually breaking several bones and had to have a couple surgeries. And so a month before I was supposed to graduate, I actually was in a wheelchair. So I had to finish high school like at home. So I was doing this hospital homebound program, and I actually rolled across the stage to get my diploma. And I had done kind of a dual diploma in college prep and cosmetology. So I, you know, had this thing, I was gonna do hair or nails or something on the side while practicing medicine, which was never gonna work out because I always knew from a really young age that I wanted to serve people. I wanted to be a doctor. And so I kind of had all these other things I wanted to do along with being a doctor, which now that I am a doctor, I know are not really the most feasible things to be trying to do and run a busy practice. So I graduated, and I was originally going to Emory University, but with my injuries, my parents were really nervous about that. They felt like, you know, that I didn't need to be in a big city trying to navigate in a wheelchair and get around. So they convinced me that I should either sit out a semester or transfer my enrollment to LaGrange College. In LaGrange, where my dad and my grandparents and, you know, my aunts were, and I could really have a lot of family support, which actually turned out to be like absolutely necessary. It was kind of difficult to navigate, but I loved LaGrange College, and so I ended up just never leaving, and I got so many opportunities to engage in leadership and to learn new things and to just grow as a person. And LaGrange College was the first place where I was really introduced to servant leadership in a formal way. Like, my parents were servant leaders, but I actually understood for the first time what it means to be a servant leader at LaGrange College. And there were so many great teachers there, and I got a really solid academic education, but I was also afforded a lot of opportunities there to grow as a person. So that was like bomb. So if you're considering colleges, make sure you check out LaGrange College. And you know, I knew I wanted to go into medicine, but I always kind of lacked confidence in my skills, not necessarily in the classroom, but certainly when it came to standardized testing. So I didn't think I was going to be able to pass the medical college admissions test, and I took it a couple times while I was in undergrad, and it was not so hot. So with those kind of scores, I applied just to see if maybe someone might take pity on me and see that I was had a great GPA, but just couldn't seem to navigate that standardized test. But, you know, I didn't get invited for any interviews. So then I'm like, okay, well, what am I gonna do? So my aunt is a medical technologist, and this is like a scientist on the medical or clinical side who helps to do all sorts of laboratory testing and get results to doctors who are gonna then be making decisions about patient care. So I thought, well, maybe if I can't crack the medical college admissions test, I can at least get close enough to where I get to help the doctors make their diagnoses and make decisions. So I went to the Medical College of Georgia, like right after I graduated from LaGrange, and I got my degree in medical technology and did an externship in Atlanta at Grady. And they liked me enough to hire me. So I worked there for a couple of years, and I thought, okay, this is gonna be the next best thing to being a doctor. But it turns out that it really did not fulfill me. And I realize now that God knew exactly who I was, where I needed to be, and for what purpose He created me, of course. So I started to really be unsettled. I wasn't happy. And so I made an appointment to talk with the admissions director at the Morehouse School of Medicine, which was close by where I lived at the time. And so I sat down with him, and he said, you know, your grades are great. You've got all this service activity and leadership roles, but you've got to get this MCAT. And he suggested that I enroll in their summer program, which they have a post-baccalaureate program now, which is much more sophisticated. But at that time, I was actually a part of the first year medical student class for the first like 6 weeks. And we had just enough time to pack in enough information for us to take exams. And when we took the exams, it was just supposed to give us kind of a confidence booster, like, yeah, medical school is definitely for me. I can hack this, or nah, girl, you need to, you know, don't quit your day job. But actually, I did quit my day job. So I didn't have enough seniority at the lab where I was working to take off for 6 weeks. And I knew I was gonna need to be available to go to school during the days and to study as much as possible. So I like quit my job. And I remember one of my supervisors telling me like, hey, you know, I can't really recommend you do this. I don't think that you're cut out for medicine. But I also had another supervisor who was so supportive. She was like, well, just quit, and you know, you can always reapply for your job if things don't go the way that you want them to. So I did. I actually quit my job and did that medical school course full time, and it was really an eye-opener for me. So not only did I learn that I definitely could do medical school, but I also learned that Morehouse was where I wanted to be. So the next time I applied to medical schools, I only applied to Morehouse, and I retook the MCAT, and I still didn't get like the highest score, but I got a good enough score, and my confidence was just, oh my gosh, it was such a huge confidence booster for me. So if you're somebody who's interested in going to medical school and maybe you don't have the best grades or the best MCAT scores, definitely look at post-baccalaureate programs, and I'm a little partial to Morehouse's, so check that out. So anywho, I went to medical school, and it was fantastic. I had such a great experience. I got to do so many things, and the entire time I was in medical school, I was just spouting off about how I was going to become a plastic surgeon or maybe a trauma surgeon. And you know, it was really interesting because they had the dean of the medical school who was just like rumored to be like the oracle. Like, if you go and see her and sit down with her, she's gonna tell you like what you're gonna be, what kind of doctor you're gonna be when you grow up. So I went to see her because, you know, of course, being that I had already set my mind on becoming a surgeon, I was sure that she was gonna tell me that I was gonna become a surgeon. But she actually said, you're gonna become an OBGYN. You need to do happy medicine. And I was like, what? No way. I will never be an OBGYN. I'm like, this chick is crazy, right? But in the middle of my last year of school, when everybody's applying for jobs, the residency for medical students is like kind of your first job as soon as you finish medical school. And so everyone pretty much does a residency, and depending on the specialty you choose, you may be there anywhere from 3 to 7 years. So I had already started applying for general surgery jobs and doing these things called sub-internships, which is where you can kind of go, and it's basically like tryouts, right? So you go there, you work like a dog, and then you hope they like you enough to offer you a job. So I was doing these sub-internships, and I realized that I didn't really like surgery as much as I wanted to. And you know, as I was going on these interviews, I kept getting this coaching from other surgeons who were mentoring me, and they were like, you know, you probably shouldn't wear pink sparkly lip gloss, and you just need to tone it down a little bit. You're kind of like over the top. You don't really, your personality is too big for surgery. You know, we pretty much are very serious. We do our jobs, and I don't think all surgeons are that way. As a matter of fact, now I know better, but I was just really counseled to be more, I don't know, to fit in more. Like, only wear dark suits. Don't wear heels with ruffles or sparkles and all that sort of stuff. So it kind of was just like, you know, they're like, don't make muffins for a morning report in surgery. And I'm like, okay, but these are things that I really love and things that I really enjoy. And so it just became apparent to me, like right at the end, at the last possible minute, that I didn't want to be a surgeon. And not necessarily that I didn't want to do surgery, I just knew I did not want to do general surgery anymore. So I went back to the same dean with my tail between my legs, and I'm like, I just figured out that I am on the wrong path. What do you think I should do? And she said, well, maybe now you might be ready to go and spend some time with some OBGYNs and some folks that are doing GYN surgery, which gives you an opportunity to do the procedures that you love and to work with your hands, but also to do preventative care and to do patient education and to really build a rapport and some longevity with your patients. And so I took her up on that offer, and I tried just, you know, visiting with different OBGYNs, going to offices, going to hospitals, going to surgery cases, and I loved it. First of all, no one was worried about my lip gloss, and I wore a pair of high heels with ruffles to my interview for OBGYN, and the doctor interviewing me was like, oh my God, your shoes are so cute. So it really fit my personality. No one was, you know, concerned that I was too bright or too sparkly. And I just loved having an opportunity to see women and treat women every day. It was like talking to your girlfriends all day. So I did a residency at Morehouse School of Medicine with a fabulous group of co-residents who are now still very connected. And matter of fact, they threw my bachelorette party before I got married. It was bomb. So, you know, we'll definitely have them on because they are the original girl gang, and we're happy to welcome you now. So make sure you subscribe. But I will definitely want to do a session with them so they can tell you where the dead bodies are buried, so to speak. But that's kind of bad. We didn't kill anybody, but you know where the bones are, girl, the bones. But we'll definitely spend some time talking with them. But we had a great time in residency. We saw just about everything under the sun and learned how to do a lot of things over the 4 years that we were there. And so our teachers, or our more experienced physicians who were teaching us, were very, very good at modeling not only how to be an excellent surgeon and an excellent, you know, clinical doctor, but also how to be a doctor that can connect with your patients mentally and emotionally, and sometimes even socially. So I think that that was just an invaluable experience, and I'm so glad that I went to Morehouse School of Medicine for medical school and residency. So at the end of my residency, when I was getting ready to finish and go out and get like my first real job, I kind of, you know, had started to develop this little seed of wanting to help women outside of the metro Atlanta area. Like, I was hearing a lot about data that was coming out from the CDC that was talking about women who were in underserved areas having higher risk of having pregnancy complications, or having increased infant and maternal deaths. And so I thought, I really want to move outside of the Atlanta area to try to serve in an underserved area. So once I finished, one of my co-residents and I actually moved to Columbus, and we were part of a kind of a blending practice where there was a really seasoned physician who was coming into a hospital-owned practice, and we were joining. And so it was definitely a great learning experience. I learned so much, but it was also a really kind of strange and very painful experience as well. But I know that God wastes nothing. And so I can say that in Columbus was when, this girl who grew up going to church and who grew up, learning the Bible and being able to quote whole books of scripture. It wasn't until I was there in that, in that situation in Columbus that I really met God for myself. And that is where delivering joy comes from. There was so much that went on there, and we will definitely have an episode where I will share that with you, and because I think it's really important for you guys to have really good examples of people who fell down and got back up. And I'm definitely a person who has fallen down and gotten back up, or someone who has been, who has been hurt and been able to come back and still, be successful and be even stronger and better off. Our struggles are what really define us. And so Columbus was a defining point for me, and we'll talk about it and, kind of give you some details about that in a later talk. But, people say, oh, are you going to tell it all? Are you going to be transparent? And I'm like, yes, because I own my story, and I own all the experiences that I've had. And I always hear that old adage, like, if people wanted you to write your story and write kindly about them, then they probably should have just behaved better. So it's not to get back at people or name names, and we won't name names, but I do want to kind of give you guys a little bit of encouragement, because the Bible is very clear about we overcome because of Jesus Christ, and also because of the words of our testimony. And so it's so important that your mess becomes a message. So we'll get to that message in a later episode. But anywho, so things didn't go so hot in Columbus, but joy was delivered, because joy met Jesus in Columbus, and it was a life-changing moment for me. And so I am so grateful for the experiences that I had there, because it made me a stronger person. And I remember one time, as I was ending my time in Columbus, driving down the road, and I heard this gospel song that came on that says, "Thank you for pushing me into my destiny." And that's exactly what that situation did for me. So that was the time I really started to seek the Lord, to really begin to earnestly study. I began a tithing journey, and we'll get into that in a later episode and talk about finances and how important those are, that we manage those well and be a good steward of the blessings that we have. But I just really started to really pursue God. And of course, whenever you try to get closer to God, He definitely comes closer to you. And so that's what people mean when they say, if you draw near to God, God will draw near to you. So that was just such a pivotal moment in my life. And I was actually about done working in Columbus, and I made a phone call one day to Thomaston, and I was trying to get information on a patient who just kind of like randomly showed up and said that she had had prenatal care there. So anyway, I ended up talking to one of the nurses on labor and delivery, and she was, just kind of talking to me, and she said, the doctor who you were trying to get records from has moved on, and actually all our doctors have moved on. And she said, I just so enjoyed talking to you. I can't even remember what we were talking about other than the records, but we had a really nice, just run-of-the-mill conversation. And she said, I really wish we had doctors that were nice like you here. And so I had a friend that actually worked there, and I called him up and he said, oh, you should definitely check it out. So I actually ended up doing some kind of part-time work there for a while, and then I moved on and went there full-time. And I think that that was the moment that God really kind of started to give me vision for what for what he wanted my practice to be and what I needed to really be doing. And so I got an opportunity to really engage with the people in that town and the women in that town. And I learned to work under many different circumstances where maybe I didn't have every resource that I needed, or we didn't have as many staff as I would have liked. I learned to, really kind of think outside the box and to be very proactive in my care of women, because I just really had this thing, like I did not want to become this country doctor who hasn't really kept up with medicine, which medicine is changing and evolving every day. And so that's why I think that it's so important every day that I read something or watch a video or have an academic discussion with one of my colleagues, because medicine is changing all the time. And if you don't keep up, it will pass you by. It's really important for me to always make sure that the standard of care that I'm delivering is top notch at all times. So I wanted to really stay engaged. And so I did a lot of courses. I did a lot of webinars. I did a lot of, just reading different articles and having academic discussions with my colleagues there. And it was really a pretty neat time for me. And it was definitely something that I was passionate about. I learned things about myself that I didn't know. I learned all sorts of skills that I had that I didn't even know that I could do, from like home decor to, helping plan an office space and lay it out. And so it was really a good time for me. And, of course, there's never sunshine without rain. And so we always have to be prepared for it when it rains. But it taught me some great lessons about myself, but it also taught me some really good lessons about the medical field in general and how things work and the politics that come along with working, in a hospital or working in a practice. And so I learned a lot about that. And I, eventually just decided that it was time for a change, because there were some things that were happening that I just did not feel were right or fair. And I learned about, definitely, there are huge pay disparities in medicine in terms of, male physicians making much more than female physicians, Black female physicians making the least of all physicians. So, there's actually an equal pay day that was started for doctors, for female physicians to demand equal pay, which I think is kind of insane, because we're doing the same work. And according to the studies released by the American Medical Association, we're doing better work. So our patients are actually doing better. So I think that there is definitely some room for conversation with regard to pay inequities for women in the workplace in general. And don't worry, girl gang, I got you on that one too. So we'll be kind of exploring that a little bit together in the future. So instead of being angry and becoming bitter, I just decided that it was just time to move on. And I was really kind of like praying and asking God about what to do next. And for about a year, I was in that space. And in that year, I became a certified lay servant minister with the United Methodist Church. So I started doing a lot of work, and I got really engaged in my church. And I actually had an opportunity to do some part-time work in LaGrange. And this was just a once a month thing. So I said, okay, I can do that once a month and, kind of rotate the things I do at church and, take that Sunday off and actually help out in LaGrange. And so I started doing that, and I just realized that, wow, this feels like home. And it really is my home. It was where I was born. It's the hospital I was born in. And so I felt like God was bringing me full circle, and I'm so glad that I was able to navigate making the change to come over here and be, surrounded by my family, my mom and my dad and my aunts, and just so many people who have known me for so long. It just really feels like being wrapped in a warm blanket. And so I have been in LaGrange now I opened my practice in November, so we've been there about 6 months now. And I'm really happy with how the practice is shaping up, and I'm hoping to really transform it into everything that God gave me vision to do. And I'm really excited about working with the women in LaGrange and the surrounding communities. So that's pretty much my journey. So we are about done with this video, and I just want to say that I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. We'll be posting videos twice a month just to kind of keep you up to date on what's going on with the Girl Gang. And I hope you will also add your comments below and let me know what conversations you want to have, what questions you have, what sorts of things you want to talk about, because this is all about you, girl. So I will see you next time, Girl Gang, and I hope you have a beautiful day.